everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the Tumwater School District sits on the ancestral land of the Nisqually, Squaxin Island, and Chehalis people. I thank these caretakers of the land who've lived on and continue to live on the land since time immemorial. Please rise as I lead us in the flag salute. Superintendent Bogatin, have there been any changes, additions to the agenda since it was published?
No changes.
All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, the agenda is approved as presented. We will now move on to meeting minutes review. The minutes from the October 24th meeting have been distributed to the board. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. We will now move on to consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda have been provided to the board. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is approved as presented. Thank you all. We are now going to move on to our student rep reports. And the question for November is regarding the high school and beyond plan. And the question is, what supports are in place for you to create a successful high school and beyond plan? And how involved do students feel in developing their own plans? And what tools, resources do they wish they had? I'll turn it over to our students.
Good evening. With the upcoming switch to the new School Links program, we decided to focus our survey on any issues with the current high school and beyond program and any improvements students would make to this program if they were in charge. Gathering responses was challenging this month because of time constraints, so I cannot speak for the entirety of my school, but I will still provide the results of students who did respond to get an idea of how they feel about the high school and beyond program switch. The first question on the survey: does the current high school and beyond program provide you with enough tools to be successful in developing your plan? 48.6% of students responded with no. We then asked students who responded with no why they felt this way, why they felt they didn't have enough tools with the current high school and beyond software. And most responses stated that they have not used the program this year and that it is too crowded and difficult to navigate. We also asked students if they felt involved in developing their plans, and only 59.5% of respondents said they felt included in the construction of their plan. And when asked if they are looking forward to the switch to the School Links program, 72.7% of students responded with yes. The final question we asked students was, what is one feature you would implement to improve your success in the high school and beyond program? And respondents made it clear that they would like a feature that informs them of important assignments, when to do them, and when they're due. Thank you for listening as always.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So with the short notice, we didn't really do a survey this time. We just asked questions. I remember last year that a lot of the seniors said that it did help them because it planned for them for the future. But I know that kids this year, it's a lot of overwhelmingness in it because there's so much that has to be done. And like he said, a lot of the kids wanted like certain dates or like time frames of like when things are due or like top priority stuff. A lot of the kids just feel like stressed out when it comes their senior year because a lot of the kids haven't touched it because teachers are not pushing it as much as they should be. I know in my homeroom, we have not touched it. So I know that when it comes their senior year, they're very stressed out because you have to finish it for a graduation requirement.
Interesting. Thank you. And I would like to apologize for the short notice. That was me trying to align things together since we're going to be talking high school and beyond plan this evening. So appreciate your short work, and even what you've shared is is quite interesting and helpful. So any questions from the board for our students?
No questions, but I hope you have lots of questions for Megan when she presents. Not to put her on the spot, but I think your questions will be helpful to Megan.
So I am curious, and kind of what you mentioned, Emma, about not touching it for 4 years and the experience and working with it within your homeroom. So this is a topic that has actually been on the board agenda since I've been on the board. We've talked about it with all, and our student reps have always been the most powerful voices in this one because you're the ones that are directly utilizing this. And so I am curious if you can expand on that a little bit, and Cody as well, if you happen to have any insight in terms of just kind of knowing and understanding what the requirements are and what has been your experience in that being aligned to your homeroom work or, throughout the course of your high school career and maybe even in middle school, since that's where it's supposed to start.
So as far as students sort of not touching the program, I think that would definitely be because teachers are not pushing it enough, and we only find out about an assignment until there's like a week left to do it. There's no notice at all, so that's probably why kids aren't touching it. But I mean, as far as like doing it outside of school, it's the same thing. It's just not a high priority because it's not talked about enough. They don't really know what it is, what it does for them, or what the long-term goal of even having their high school and beyond plan is. I think is a big one. So yeah.
I know at like the beginning of the year in homerooms, we talk about it and we kind of like talk about what it is and how it's going to help you. But I feel like it hasn't been talked about enough for it being a graduation requirement that you have to do it. And I just don't feel like it's talked about enough and teachers aren't pushing it. I know in our homeroom, we haven't really done it. And it's now people are getting stressed out about it because we haven't been doing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? All right, great. Thank you very much again. Okay, we will now move on to public comment. Before we begin, I would like to remind members of the public that if you wish to have addressed the board during the public comment portion of this meeting, you would have needed to fill out the public comment form available on the district website by 12 p.m. today. If you missed this opportunity, you are welcome to sign up for the next regular board meeting or email your comments to the board and/or superintendent. Contact information is on the district website. Becky, did you receive submissions?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, school board members, Superintendent Bogatin, for giving me the chance to speak. My name is Alethea Kruger. I am the parent of 4 children in the Tumwater School District, 2 of whom are students at Black Hills High School. One of my children is a senior. I'm here to implore the district to reconsider their policy on the closed campuses at our high schools. As our seniors prepare to exit high school and enter college, the workforce, the military, or the trades, they should be afforded the freedom to move between school and a quick lunch, a trip to the bank, or to pick up a prescription from the pharmacy. These students will be asked to manage their time, their gas, and their next role in just a few short months. Several local schools, including Timberline and North Thurston, allow students to move outside of campus grounds during their lunch periods. These schools have a robust student population, roughly double Black Hills' population. Bigger schools with more statistical opportunities to see problems as a result of their open campus policies still allow students the agency to manage their time and their schedules. Both high schools allow New Market and Running Start students to move between these programs and their high school campuses. I understand these students must leave campus to engage in these programs. However, they still need to manage their time, as I would guess these students often stop for a coffee or a burger on their way to these programs. Those students required by the closed campus policy are not given the opportunity to manage their own lunch periods despite having the time, the academic standing, and the potential permission to do so. A significant aspect of student engagement is motivation. It is widely recognized that students who feel disconnected from their education are less likely to perform well academically. One instance was my own student. When she left campus, purchased an entire pizza from Costco, and returned before her post-lunch class began, found that the students who shared her pizza felt a renewed engagement with the class and a sense of community with their peers. In fact, the teacher himself enjoyed a slice. To implement this change responsibly, schools could establish a sign-out system using tools like Securely. This would allow administrators to keep track of which students are leaving campus while respecting their independence. In addition, requiring parents' consent for students to leave school grounds would ensure that families are involved in the decision-making process. By clarifying that the school is not liable for accidents occurring off campus, schools can protect themselves while still promoting student freedom. By implementing a more flexible approach to campus policy, schools can enhance student engagement, responsibility, and overall academic success. As students prepare to transition into adulthood, it is essential that they are given the tools and opportunities to make their own decisions within reason. Promoting student autonomy not only benefits individuals, but also enriches the educational community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our reports to the board. And first up, Elliot Hedin, Principal, Bush Middle School, will present his 2024-25 school improvement plan.
You're on.
All right. President Kaikkonen, members of the board, Superintendent Bogatin, thanks for letting me present our school board presentation for our school improvement plan for Bush Middle School with the focus on our core content. Getting right into it, our school improvement plan, I wanted to throw a 30,000-foot view on here of all of our ABCs just so everyone could see them. Looking at attendance, getting back to the 80% threshold, so 80% of our kids attending 90% of the time. This is the only one we have any current data on. We're at 81% as of the creation of this presentation. For our behavior, we want to reduce our number of student referrals while focusing on our high-impact months of October, which we just ended, and March. We see more referrals during those months. Course content, we want to reduce the number of failing courses, and for our social emotional learning, we want to increase student sense of belonging through culture and clubs. So for course content, during the 2024-25 school year, through quarterly review and some strategic efforts, Bush Middle School reduced the number of students failing individual courses by term to 7%, and I didn't put the numbers up here, but 23-24 numbers, it was 8.7%, it's almost 9% in 8th grade. We want to reduce that to 7%. Reduce from 6% in 23-24 down to 4.5 in 7th grade, and then go from 1% down to 0.5% in 6th grade. And this would reduce the overall F grades by 90 individual grades over term 1 and term 2. So throwing up some raw data, and this is from our homeroom system. Just give you a look at what we see data-wise. The top line that's separated is overall district failing grades. So that's roughly 30,000 over the course of the year. So last year, this is 23-24 data. Last year, about 8% of secondary students had a failing grade. And Bush aligns with that pretty well, unfortunately. At the 8th grade, you can see that that's at 8.7%, and then 5%, and then that 1% at 6th grade. So it goes district overall, and then 6, 7, 8, if you look at the data. Disaggregating that by populations, you can see how it breaks down percentages wise. And this is just to give kind of an overall snapshot. The red and orange are kind of combined hard to see on the slide. But those are Ds and Fs, and then Cs are the yellow, and then you get into green, which are Bs and As. So the raw data looks like this. Went back a couple years. So during the 22-23 school year, during semester 1, we had 221 failing grades. 22-23, semester 2, we had 260 failing grades. This is overall student population. 2024, we actually reduced that, semester 1, down to 217, but increased second semester to 268. So we'll be looking at this quarter by quarter for the 24-25 school year. We're about to end quarter 1, so we'll be able to add some data to our school improvement plan. And as all you know, we look at our school improvement plans quarterly. On the back sheet, there are quarterly updates that we'll do as we end quarters and semesters. So a little more, this is some of our SBA data for 23-24, and not necessarily causative, but maybe correlative to our failing grades. This is our mathematics data. 6th grade, 7th grade, then 8th grade. You can see level 4 is the dark blue, level 3 is the light blue, and then 2, then level 1 on the SBA. So that's our mathematics data. ELA data is a little better. Again, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade data. Looking at that. So what are we going to do about it? One thing that we've been talking about a lot as a school is accountability, and been reaching out to families in my monthly newsletters and speaking a lot about accountability, both for grades and behavior, and really trying to change the narrative about how students focus on school and get prepared for school. We've seen, over the years, we've seen a lot of apathy towards turning in assignments, doing classwork, doing their classwork as homework if they don't finish it. So trying to switch that narrative, change it around so that we're back to, hey, you're in charge of your grades. Let's get these done. You're awesome kids. Let's make this happen. Let's get more passing grades. So one of the things we're doing, getting back to kind of our base PBIS system. When I started last year at Bush Middle School, implemented a lot of the Tier 1 practices. A lot of them were already going on. PBS has been in this district for over a decade, but a lot of times, you need a refresher. So brought a lot of the Tier 1 practices back, focusing on classroom expectations, making sure students understand building expectations and classroom expectations, posting those, reviewing those, and making sure students know what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be prepared for the class, being ready to learn and learning. Also, this year being a pilot school for what we're calling, or what is called, PBIS Rewards. It's a secondary platform that instead of giving out tickets like the elementary schools did and what we did before, we did rock tickets last year and had done that for a long time. It's actually an online platform where students get points. It's a lot easier to give them out as a whole class. So when a teacher sees the whole class is ready to learn, they can give the whole class a point. And what we found is that is motivating for all grades. And one reason why we brought this on board, the reward system, is we were noticing that 8th graders, specifically a lot of 7th graders, and a small number of 6th graders found the tickets to not be super reinforcing. This has been found to be already this year, over the first 8 weeks, a real good reinforcer and positive reward system for students to do the right thing, whether that's sitting down with their pencil being ready, or sitting down doing IXL to start the class, whatever it is. We found it to be positive, and kids like it, and actually teachers are getting into it too and creating their own systems in class of rewarding kids with things like lunch with the teacher, which we hadn't done as much, but this is kind of not forced issue, but allowed the teachers to expand in that way instead of us just selling stuff in our student store like Gatorades. So it's been a cool thing that teachers are really involved in more, which has been really nice. Doing a lot of culture building activities, trying to bring back the culture, fun, assemblies, We switched from one of those fundraisers where we sell a bunch of popcorn or wrapping paper to a fun run where we just ask, hey, we want to do this. We're going to have a fun run. Let's just do a donation from the families. A lot of schools are having positive impacts to both their ASB budget and the culture from these fun runs. And I'll tell you, the fun run was amazing. The kids loved it. We didn't raise as much funds as we thought we might. Not that we won't be able to supplement our ASB budget, but it ended up being a really nice culture builder. We do quite a few different assemblies. I do a monthly assembly with each individual grade level. We have spirit assemblies, and we have our mandatory assemblies that, for Veterans Day, which we're going to be doing tomorrow. All these, including some of the rewards that we have and the implementation of clubs this year, really trying to bring back the culture, wanting kids to be at school, having a positive outlook on their school day, wanting to come back because, I would say at middle school, you get a lot of, I don't want to be here, it's not so much fun. But I want to change that narrative, get the kids to school, get them excited to be there. Some of the tier 2 type things we do specifically for course content stuff. And I would say I mentioned all this tier 1 stuff because it does lend to getting the kids in their seats involved and wanting to learn. Because that's what we see most of is like, we want the kids there and ready. And this is what helps that, and which ends up helping their motivation and their grades. Some tier 2 things, we meet every other week as a leadership team and talk about our tier 2 and tier 3 kids, students who need additional support. And we have weekly parent meetings on Tuesdays for the kids that we identify as needing a meeting. What specific supports are in place for certain kids and getting the help they need. We have LAP at our school. We have a .4 certificated teacher who supports LAP. And we do a little different model. She uses 3 periods a day because she rotates her planning, and we pull students not out of a certain, we don't have an elective class that is for LAP. We actually pull them out of an elective, maybe it's PE or part of art, and we do half that class a few days a week. So they're not missing their whole elective. They're not totally missing an elective by doing an intervention class, and we're able to serve more kids. So one teacher serving 35 kids at a .4 FTE, it's actually really good. So by doing it thoughtfully, we're able to serve more students. We're focusing on math at this point, but we may expand depending on student needs. As we exit kids, we can put more into the program. One thing that the secondary is doing is something called mastery-based learning. And right now, math and science are well into the work. ELA was brought into the work last year, and we're getting social studies into the fray this year. And a lot of props to Brian Hardcastle bringing this in with Michelle Paul, and then currently Danielle Longmire leading the work. We're getting back into it with our Lighthouse Committee. But really that has a kind of a twofold thing. There's a lot of student voice. We have actually I think it's the biggest cohort in the state. Laura Chevalier, our teacher librarian, runs the student group, and she keeps saying that she feels like we're overrunning the meetings because we have 15 kids, and other schools have like 2 or 3. So I've always told her, whatever, if they let you have 15, let Bush's voice be loud. And then there's a teaching component where they look at learning progressions and building rubrics. Like I said, they're doing a lot of that in math and science right now, and they're expanding to ELA and science in this year and upcoming years. The other thing we're doing, we're kind of within that tier 1 work, but also tier 2, but mainly tier 1 is just highlighting best practices that teachers have. So we rotate our staff meetings, which are every other Monday, to certain classes that Assistant Principal Guthrie and I have visited over the course of those 2 weeks. And we just ask the teacher, hey, we noticed this awesome thing you're doing. Our upcoming Monday staff meeting after It's actually in 2 weeks, or a week from our day off. Will be in one of our math teachers' room, and she's working on building thinking classrooms, which gets the kids up, gets them writing together, gets them talking together. And I observed her class as part of our teacher evaluation process, and the kids were totally engaged in math. Everyone is engaged, and so it's a great work, and so I'm going to have her share that. That can expand to other classes, things like Kagan, things like working on science and engineering practices as part of the greater science field. Like, those things are shared between staff, and I always let staff know, if you want to go and watch, I'll cover your class, go during planning, but do these cool things that your colleagues are working on. A couple other things, when we build our master schedule, we're super thoughtful about our essentials classes, looking at student data and working with our 5th grade teachers and the elementary principals to identify students who could use a little slower class, which we call essentials for math and ELA. And then also having on the other side, our honors classes. So we have quite a few, both essentials and honors classes for the students who we identify as needing those. And then we also this year expanded our co-taught classes to having 7, which means our special education teacher works with our math teacher, English teacher, social studies teacher within the class, supporting some of our resource kids, but also the other students that are in there with sentence stems and things like that. The co-teaching model this year has been super, I don't know, it's working out really well. Everyone's enjoying it as co-teachers, but also the kids seem to be both learning really well and enjoying it too. So I think one of the biggest things to highlight one more thing is at Bush, we're doing something a little different with the teacher evaluation project. With the implementation this year of the new student growth goal framework, we are combining that idea with the TPEP process and PLCs to make more sense. Because a lot of times they're kind of piecemeal. You do an observation as part of TPEP, and teachers are making their student growth goals. They might not necessarily be combined. So what we're doing is making a thoughtful process. Through our evaluation, observation, we're doing our observations because we need 2 for focused and 2 or 3 for comprehensive teachers. And we're doing it with a 1 unit of study. So the student growth goals are based on 1 unit of study. So we sit within that. They make their student growth goals for that unit. We observe that unit. We talk about that unit. And all the teachers have agreed to work on student growth goal 3, which is small groups. So what we're going to do is do the TPEP process, focus on our student growth goals, focus on the kids within our student growth goal, criterion 3. And then as years go by, or as the year goes on, the teachers during our site team meetings during PLC days, they will share what they know about the students they've identified within criterion 3 and collaborate on the supports that they need. We just are currently doing our conferences, and we switched to student-led conferences, and part of that is a questionnaire that the families fill out. One of those questions being, hey, can you let us know what supports we need for your kids or your student? And as part of the new student growth goal model, so that also can be shared within the PLC, so that really we're focusing on supporting those tier 2, tier 3 kids through the teacher evaluation project. I talked fast. Any questions?
Yes. Would anyone like to go first?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jill.
I have one. Change my solution over here. I'm so flexible. But anyway, the question I have is, what would be your plans for assessment of the success, like the timing? When might you do an assessment of which of the efforts seem most successful? Would that be late this year, this school year, or beginning of next school year?
We'll look at quarterly. So we'll see at the end of each quarter the number of failing grades. We'll take the data as it goes year to year by semester, and obviously looking at our SBA scores. But it'll be a little bit anecdotal with which teachers. When we look at teachers doing great things in class, that can be shared, right? Not that all of our teachers teach the same courses. Like, we do have 2 7th grade math teachers, but one of them only has 2 7th grade classes, and they have 3 compressed math classes. So it's hard to look at data across 2 teachers. But I would say, looking at if we are making success, it'll be by quarter and by semester, if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
But the data's a little, it's a little bit, we need to see how like MBLC goes and how far we get with like learning progressions to see if it has an impact. Because some things are rolling out, not necessarily in just over a quarter or a semester, but yeah, over a whole year. So identifying which is having the biggest impact will be tough to do just within a quarter semester. So some of those things are year long.
So I'd like you to come back a year from now or something and see how things went.
Absolutely.
Is there data to support the student-led conferences?
To support whether it's effective for kids?
Yes.
So as part of the questionnaire, it's a good question. As part of the questionnaire I had at the end of the student-led conference, it asks parents what's going well, what you'd like to see changed at Bush, and a little bit, or there's a question about, since this is our first year going back to student-led conferences, how they felt about it. About 80%, up till now, about 80% have been real positive about student-led conferences, although they don't necessarily get as much time with the teacher they might want to talk with. So we're going to maybe adjust what that looks like to have a little more teacher time. What we've done in the past at Bush is they signed up for 2 teachers to see, because really you can't sign up for all 6. There's not enough time in the day to meet with all 6 teachers for 20 minutes. So we had them only meet with 2 in years past. And that's why this year we went to student-led. Students created a slideshow where they we made it for them, and then they put in all their data about periods 1 through 6, a goal for themselves, their favorite assignment, what they need to work on. And that had great feedback, because the parents like to see and hear from their own student. So there was a lot of positive feedback. So like I said, about 80% of the parents gave us feedback that it was great. Alongside that, 50%, so they sometimes said, this was great, but we'd like to also talk with one of the teachers. And today was our day to let them sign up to speak with an individual teacher, because we did the student-led conferences Tuesday, Wednesday. So all of today up through 8 o'clock tonight, so actually as soon as I'm done, I'm going to bounce back because we still have conferences going, was their chance to sign up for an individual teacher if they wanted that conference. The data shows that the kids and parents like it. As far as affecting, something like course content and course completion, I would say reflecting on their work is helpful. I would also say that middle schoolers aren't super good at it without a lot of direction. And you guys were talking about high school and beyond plan.
Yeah. Good prep.
We were thinking of that when we built it, and the way we built it to actually lead toward some of that goal setting stuff that the middle schoolers actually have to do for their high school and beyond plan at the end of 8th grade. So we can talk more. So I'd like to see that progression starting with us into high school, even bringing some stuff down to us, because I think that'd be helpful.
One of the things, Emma, that I will just add, one of the top effect sizes is self-reported grades. And so I don't know if that's, there's like a bunch of educational research John Hattie's done, and it's like the number 2 thing, and it's an effect size of 1.33, and it's like we're looking at anything above 0.8, is sort of really successful in schools. And so I don't know if that is the self-led conferences fall within that self-reported grades. Would you kind of put that in that?
It depends how it's led by the homeroom teacher, right? And what we did was we had the homeroom teacher, we built it as a student leadership team, and we had the homeroom teachers push it out and had the kids work on it in some homeroom time, and then had content teachers work on the individual slides for that period for a few minutes. There were some teachers that spent more time on it, more like 40, 45 minutes, and those were the slides that had the most impact on goal setting and reflection. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about as I survey staff, like how did this work for you? How could it be better in the future? And from the conversations I've had with staff, the more the staff put into it, again, like high school and beyond plan work, the more staff put into it, the more buyback you get from kids and the more reflection takes place, leading to that type of effect size probably.
I have another question. Do the students meet with the homeroom teacher and present their slideshow that they made?
Yes, that's the tough part. So the homeroom teacher is there facilitating the student, leading it through with their parents. One of the tough parts is not all of our homeroom teachers have the student in their class. In the past, it has been like that, but we had to get rid of what we called teaming because we got too big to allow teaming, which is, you know, one side of the pod has all the kids and has all the students in their homeroom. So most of the time, homeroom teachers had the student in their class, but there were some that had none. In fact, our lab teacher also has a homeroom, but she doesn't teach that grade of her homeroom. And it just kind of works out that way with our master schedule because that drives a lot. So yes, that would be the best thing is if they also had the student in one of their classes. We do see a lot of math and ELA teachers, parents want to meet with them. Those are the two bigger classes that parents want to meet with. But yeah, no, it's going well. There's little tweaks that we'll do after we survey.
Go ahead, Ty.
So I'm just curious, the first couple slides are all about basically students that are failing. That's certainly a metric to look at. Is there any proof that if we're focusing so much on just the kids that are failing, that the overall median of grade that kids are getting is not actually improving? I'd like to think that if we're only looking, if we're only looking at the kids that are in that bottom tier and trying to help them get out of failing and into a D or something, you know, are we helping the other 80% of the kids that are in this C's and D's to improve to B's or the B's to A's?
Yeah, great question. And when you look at, when you look at lab, a lot of times with our, and when I was an elementary principal, we tried to move, sometimes, depending on the year and the data we have, sometimes we would try and move like level 2 kids to level 3. What I would say and why I threw this up in as a focus on just failing grades is I don't necessarily, and maybe I could change it away to something more positive, but really I want to focus on the apathy and the accountability, which would affect 100% of our kids, right? Because that's what I'm seeing, and that's what our teachers are seeing is our students are like, oh, I don't really want to do this, which that's students across the board. You know, there's A students that also have that level of apathy, and the way we grade, some of our A and B students can actually get away with not doing some of the work because so much of our grades are weighted on tests. So I would say focusing on, the sheer data focuses on F grades, but I would say our strategies are focusing on all students. And really building culture, trying to defeat apathy, create accountability, will help all the grades, you know, increase.
Is there any data that you're tracking to see if you're moving because this data is all about Fs only for the most part. Are you able to see that you're affecting 100% of the kids as you move forward, like with the data supporting that?
we're definitely able to.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, easy data to get. Yeah.
So I'm going to hop in with my questions because it kind of builds on what Ty mentioned. So this is something I'll bring up with every group. Our board goals, student learning goals, and specifically focused on the policy that specifies the board shall establish goals and request that the schools also align those within their school improvement plans, primarily focused on our proficiency data in math and English, and focusing on the different groups. So my overarching question is I'd like to hear a little bit more reflection on the proficiency levels. So you shared the one slide and it has, math and ELA broken down by the levels, but similarly, I'm curious what's been the thought process in terms of the direct linkage, and some of this has been brought up in terms of the strategies that you're focusing on. How is that going to have an impact on raising student proficiency levels, and particularly the groups that need it the most? I was just perusing just Bush altogether data and looking at students with disabilities, which across the district, this is a group that is showing a very large lag. And Bush is looking like 17.9% in ELA, 14.2% in math proficiency levels. So just curious the reflection on how does all of this tie to improving that?
And I would say, like I said, the data is maybe not exactly correlative, but there is causative effect on, how much students put into their effort in passing classes and doing well in the SBA. If you look at the SBA scores, I would say, being in the school, being in the system, it's a lot about how much they care. And so changing that narrative to, hey, you're accountable for this, you can do it, and we're going to help you, and we're going to put into place, our Tier 1 strategies. But really, looking at the data, we had a lot of students who I believe have or should have met proficiency, especially in math, but they might, blow off the test. They might rush through it. They might feel that it doesn't matter to them or doesn't care. They don't care about, doing well. So I think that overall, hey, let's put a focus back on academics. Let's make it something that's worthwhile to them. Like I said, apathy is the big word that we've been using because that's kind of what we're seeing. They don't necessarily care about their grades or care about doing the work. So that's the narrative we're trying to switch. And, when you get kids back working, that'll change the grades, that'll change the SBA scores. Because as they learn more, as they're passing, I would say that'll affect the SBA scores for sure.
Other questions? Cody, go ahead.
So this isn't as much of a question as it is a comment, and that is that I think the accountability idea is great, and it's always great to enforce a positive student mindset, and that is definitely probably the best solution to getting better grades for students and a higher attendance rate. But I don't think students with disabilities should be held to that same standard, because you can't just tell a student with a severe level 3 disability that they need to be accountable for their work and that they need to do it. I think that the teachers are they need to be the responsible ones for that. So I just think that needed to be said, because that's just how I felt. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I have a question about the mastery-based learning. What is that? Is it kids learning on their own time schedule, or what does that mean?
That ends up, I think, being the heart behind it. Mm-hmm. We're not quite there yet. Right now, our teams are working on creating rubrics and learning progressions that focus on culturally responsive learning and allowing kids to have a lot of voice within how they like proceed through a unit, and even for the assessment. So that's where we're at. And like I said, we're in the early stages of it. As you look at mastery-based learning as a whole, if you went to the mastery-based learning website, it looks different than where we're at now. And I think as we progress through and it's going to take years, as we progress through the years, it'll end up looking like that. More student choice. And I think that the end dream is actually having more content options too, for students to choose a path through, I think, all of secondary, right? But right now, yeah, working on rubrics, working on progressions that allow a lot of different choice for students, and assessments that aren't just this paper pencil assessment. Could be verbal, could be a project or whatever. So yeah, working on rubrics now and student voice. Those are kind of the two focuses right now.
And how are those students, do the students choose? How do they get to be in that situation?
Teachers send out a bunch of names to us, and then we ask students who want to be involved. And that's why we have so many, because we had a lot of students who were willing.
And so if a student showed up and they were able to meet all the requirements of a rubric without going through any progression, would they then be able to go on and?
That's a good question. And that's kind of the thing where we want to go.
Okay.
And actually this year, one of the classes that we created was an honor science class for that reason. Our 7th and 8th grade science teachers were noticing that a lot of students were reaching proficiency on the pretest. And it's like these students need something different. And so we actually identified 90 students who we felt could use something more, do something more. And so we created 3 honor science classes this year, so that in 8th grade, we could push them in different ways, do different things, not necessarily just go through curriculum, but do a pre and post, and if they're ready, they can go over and do this engineering or STEM activity, while the other students who need it will go through, that unit. So if you came over and looked at our honor science class, that's getting to where we want the mastery base to be, or what the future will be for our classes. I would say it takes a lot of time to get out of the prototypical model, though.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited. I think that makes learning meaningful for students when they're acknowledged for the knowledge that they bring. So that's awesome, Elliot. That's great. Thank you for doing that work.
Yeah, if you want to come over and see Jason Roberts' class, props. He's doing a great job. 8th grade science. And I know there's other teachers across the district that are doing similar work.
Any other questions?
I have another question. You talked about clubs. Have they never had middle school clubs before?
We had them in the past, and we brought them back. So our leadership class last year, kids really were pushing us to bring them back this year. They wanted something different than periods 1 through 6, same thing every day. So every other Monday, we do clubs, and it's student-generated ideas and student-led with teacher facilitating. So we have, engineering, jewelry making, we have a cars club, whatever students were interested in, they kind of threw it out there. We went through and said no to some, because napping club isn't a thing. And
when you're older, it might be.
Well, we made it meditation. No. So, yeah. So really it was to get the interest back. Kind of this whole idea that we want students wanting to come back to school every day. So that was part of why we brought clubs back. But we really wanted to put it back on the students to lead it. Like we have a survival club, and we have 2 teachers that love it, but really what do students want to do in that club, and they listen, and they tied some knots, right? So,
Is that outside of normal class time, or that's in place of a class?
it's 30 minutes every other Monday. So we're not taking up a lot of class time, but kids look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and information. Okay. All right. Next, we are going to move into our school links discussion with Megan Dawson, Assistant Superintendent, and Marcy Proctor, Career Connected Learning Coordinator.
Thanks, everybody. So I'm not sure how much you guys know about High School and Beyond plan. Thank you to our students who did their research under very short time restraints. I really appreciate the questions that you ask and the way that you do your data gathering, whether it's through surveys or interviews with people. I am impressed every time I come to a board meeting. I think you have very bright futures as researchers. So every student who graduates from high school in Washington State is required to do a High School and Beyond plan. How districts have created and supported and rolled that out has been drastically different across our state. In fact, maybe a parent who had 2 high school kids never saw their children's High School and Beyond plans when their children graduated from high school. So it's really exciting that the state of Washington has kind of played around with some different platforms and then agreed that all school districts in Washington State are moving to School Links. Marcy and I have talked a lot about this platform, and we're excited that not only is it accessible and easily, kids can easily, it's user-friendly, but that there are things in it that we can kind of make the Tumwater way. So thank you to Marcy for making these slides. She's going to review it similarly to how she reviewed it to Kevin and I, and then you can ask questions of either one of us. And did everybody get the handout?
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us here. Again, my name is Marcy Proctor. I'm the Career Connected Learning Coordinator here at Tumwater School District. I started in January of this year, so I have about a half year under my belt of last year, and then I'm jumping in full swing this school year as well. So the goal of the presentation today is to just briefly go over the general requirements of the High School and Beyond plan. I'd like to mostly focus on the new legislative, or it was really a engrossed bill that was passed, indicating that School Links will be the new High School and Beyond plan platform statewide in Washington, and then inform you about where our school district is at with an early adoption of that tool. So let's start with a little bit about what is the High School and Beyond plan. Well, the High School and Beyond plan is a Washington State graduation requirement. It is not waivable. If you could go on to the next slide, please. It is one of many graduation requirements in Washington State, including core and subject area requirements, credit requirements, and our graduation pathway options. So it's just one of the several
It doesn't know.
Kevin is
I have
doing
to
it.
Okay, thank you. So it's one of several graduation requirements in Washington State. Next slide. There are some guiding questions behind the High School and Beyond plan. And in theory, the High School and Beyond plan is a process. So as Megan mentioned, over the past many years, districts across Washington State have used different platforms. It originally started as like a paper form, and then once it was a requirement that it was available digitally, districts across Washington used different platforms. But the whole time, the High School and Beyond plan has always been a process by which students should be engaged in activities where they ask and begin to answer these 3 guiding questions. Who am I? What can I become? And how do I become that? Next slide. So there are several different requirements of the High School and Beyond plan. Let's talk about those a little bit. I have handed out here the one-pager that is newly created for this school year. If you look up top on the page where it kind of indicates a little bit of the scope and sequence, the items in bold are really the kind of the legislative requirements on what students have to do in a easy to understand public-facing form. So all students must conduct some kind of career research, an interest and skills inventory, do goal setting, planning for their pathways in high school and outside of high school, receive information about financial aid, do some course planning, build a resume, and have their families engaged in that process. And so the way that students engage, the way that school districts engage students in this process through a technology platform is usually to have students complete some activities in the technology throughout the year. So different school districts engage in their platforms in different ways. Here at Tumwater School District, our processes are actually different at the middle school level and the high school level. So tonight I'm just mostly going to be focusing on high school, and then I'll touch briefly on middle school at the end. So in our high school settings, homeroom lessons or High School and Beyond plan lessons are delivered in homeroom, so a student's advisory period. And throughout the year, teachers are provided with some lessons where they guide students through activities that they need to do in the platform. To my knowledge, the tasks that students have to do haven't ever been assembled in a public-facing way, so I'm excited to be able to provide everyone with something as simple as a handout this year, and also this information is available on our website. So to the point that our students made earlier, we need to know what we're supposed to do and by when. So we're starting to make that information more clear and public-facing. The exciting thing about the new tool that we are adopting, next slide please, is that School Links actually, the platform itself we have found to be much more user-friendly. So I think that a lot of the concerns that the students brought forward at the beginning, many of them will be addressed simply by upgrading to this new platform, which is fantastic. Some of them will not, and we'll be implementing some procedural changes in our schools to help support completion. So Tumwater School District is adopting School Links this current year. OSPI announced in June of this year that School Links was a successful bidder for their statewide RFP. And after reviewing over the summer what was the feasibility of our adoption this year, we decided it was a great choice for us to move forward with using School Links. Honestly, the number one reason I think it's important that we move forward this year is in my assessment, the first 6 months of my job from January to the end of last school year, I had a lot of conversations with students and teachers about the High School and Beyond plan, what they liked, what they didn't like. Top concern was they did not like the old platform. It was a very thumbs down experience. It wasn't easy to use. It wasn't clear what students were supposed to do. And so upgrading to an actual tool that was going to provide students with a much better experience, a more seamless and intuitive experience was the number one priority. And there's been a lot of other benefits as well. So we are in the adoption process. We have fully adopted for high school. The scope and sequence, as you can see here in this handout, has been assigned. And Tumwater High School began their lessons this week. They, in homeroom on Tuesday and Wednesday of, today's Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday, 2 days this week, they did homeroom lessons for their initial activity, which was student onboarding. And immediately, myself and the administrative teams at each of the school are able to go in and see by class which classes have the highest degree of completion of their first task Overwhelmingly, I would say over 3/4 of homeroom classes at Tumwater High School had more than 50% of their kids complete their first task, which I think is fantastic for our first lesson. I can easily see on my reporting end that students who feel so inclined are easily moving in to their second, third, fourth tasks and beginning work on their own. And every time that a student logs in after their first time, they will see a very clear scope and sequence of what tasks are due when in a bi-monthly way. So every month, on the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month from now until when the tasks are due, they have a pretty clear path of when they should have their assignments done by. So, and I'll touch base a little bit on where we're at with the middle school rollout at the end. So in general, the high school and beyond plan timeline, it begins in 7th grade. As we get to 8th grade, students and really counselors should be looking at student goal information, whether it's academic or career goal information, and using that to make course selections in high school. One of the ways that I have built the scope and sequence this year is taking in student feedback that students don't want to just do the same thing over and over again every single year. And so one of the reasons that not all of our schools have seen their lessons yet is because it took some time, some really meaningful time to look at. I actually went through all of the activities and built out what each grade level is required to do so that each student is meeting their legislative requirement and the information and the learning that they're engaging in over 4 years is meaningful and buildable. So the timeline, again, begins in 7th grade. Students should engage in those activities every year. At the high school level, when students complete all of their assigned activities each grade level, they're also awarded half a credit. If they don't complete their tasks, then the tasks roll over with them to senior year. So there's a lot of benefit in students doing the activities every year. They get credit for it, which helps to alleviate some of the 24 credit requirement, gives them a little bit more flexibility in their schedule if needed. Ideally, this goal setting and planning and research should happen year over year so that as student interest changes, evolves over 4 years, students' experience is also building. And then finally, it will, accumulate in a student having a really refined idea of what they're interested in rather than getting to senior year and doing 4 years of tasks in one sitting. That's not something that we want. Next slide, please. So I mentioned at the high school level, students can complete their high school and beyond plan tasks in homeroom. So the way that the lessons will be delivered at the high schools, I'm working closely with an administrative team at each building in the high school to provide a general outline of lessons that speak to the activities that students are required to do, and then those teachers or those administrators are delivering the lessons to students in their building in a time frame that works for their homeroom timeline throughout the year. Other activities also happen in homeroom, not just the high school and beyond plan. There's SEL activities and a number of other things as well. So although each school isn't doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, in general, they're doing the same activities around the same time, which is why Tumwater started this week, and our other schools will start next week. Because the scope and sequence is so easy to see and understand in this new tool, students are also free to work on it on their own if they want to. I want to offer a little tidbit. As I was building out this tool, each student and family member was sent a email communication in October about the new platform, how it was going to become available. And simply by providing a link, we had many students log in on their own and start to do activities before they had even been assigned anything. So, and to me, what that is showing is that the tool is easy to use. Even when students aren't being prompted through activities, it was clear to me the kinds of things that students were using the tool for career research, identifying colleges they might be interested in, even going through learning units, which are like little modules on topics like financial aid or getting your first job, to me showed that we made the right choice with jumping early and providing students a tool that is serving them well. So students have school time to complete their high school and beyond plan. They can revise it at any time during the year as well when things come up. As I mentioned, tasks should be completed every year. We didn't put an explicit due date on this handout because each school has kind of a different due date, and so we didn't want to, in like a general district document, say when each school's activities are due. But when students log into their high school and beyond plan, they will see due dates for all of their assignments, and then they will receive a communication from their building when it's kind of a end of the line, you have to get it done, it's the end of senior year timeline. That will be clearly communicated to students. So there's a lot of people involved in the high school and beyond plan, and each of these individuals, the student, the homeroom teacher, the family, and the counselor play a role in ensuring that the student's high school and beyond plan is updated and useful. I won't read through all of these things, but in short, the student has a responsibility to engage in their activities every year, and my hope would be that they would put forward energy and enthusiasm in using the tool provided to conduct research for what they might be interested in after high school. The homeroom teacher has a responsibility to inform students on what they're supposed to be doing and provide them time in class to do that. The family, we will have access to the student's high school and beyond plan. We haven't sent an invitation to families yet because I'm still working out the technical aspect of how that's going to work. I don't know if we want to roster families or provide them with a claim code yet. But once that is decided, there will be a clear communication to families about how they can access their student's high school and beyond plan. And then the counselor should review this information yearly with the student and help use it to inform their course selection and their plans for what they're doing after high school. Next slide, please. So that's it for an overview. I would encourage everyone, if you haven't had a chance yet, to visit the new High School and Beyond Plan webpage. It is a more in-depth digital version of this handout. The one-pager is also posted on that webpage. One thing I think is important that, like our students mentioned, is that what's required of students is easy to find, and when students visit the website, it's clear to see at each grade level what task is assigned, and there's support documents on how to complete those tasks if you need support outside of the school day. With that, I'll touch a little bit on where we're at with the middle school rollout. So last year, the middle school used U-Science BrightPath for their high school and beyond plan completion. My colleague, who we've had a little bit of turnover in the CTE department, Michelle Paul was our middle school CTE TOSA who led that work last year. She returned to the classroom this year, and we have a new person in her place, Danielle Longmire. So the lessons for high school beyond plan were deployed in middle school science last year. Most of the research was done in middle school science with a handoff to ELA for a career project. And I have been in communication with our current middle school teachers about the functionality and using BrightPath again this year. Danielle and I have set meeting dates with our middle school administrators to talk about, in general, the high school and beyond plan. I think mostly this year the process at the middle school level is going to stay the same as it was last year. Use BrightPath. The teachers are already familiar with it. They have a set system in place, and then we can use this year as a way to really train up on the SchoolLinks platform for a nice, easy deployment in the fall of next year. So, well, Yes, for 7th and 8th grade. But we'll be discussing that in more detail with those, the middle school building administrators next week and the week after. That's it for me. I welcome your questions, your comments, and if possible, a dialogue.
Sure, Cody.
So for the family connection requirement, I just would like a more detailed description, as it seems, from my understanding, it's a graduation requirement for the program. So I have a two-part question of first, what would be a more detailed description of that, and what if a student has challenges getting their family to cooperate with that aspect? So like, are they just not going to be able to complete the program, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I guess surface level, many families want to be able to view their students' high school and beyond plan. And so simply providing them a way, essentially it will be either an access code or they'll have their own login where they can literally log in and see only their student's tool. They'll be able to see the functionality of the tool and the plan that the student has set. So some of what I'm discussing might seem a little abstract without us actually being in the tool. And if at another time you want to have a separate opportunity to actually dig in and so you can see it, I'd be happy to provide that experience. But the family will be able to log in and see what activities the student has done. They'll be able to see the results of those activities. So any career inventory assessment that they've done, any goal setting, if they've set certain colleges or careers that they're interested in, if they've input activities that will be eventually uploaded into a resume, the family will be able to see that. The legislative requirement is that families be involved. And so one small aspect is just you have to at least provide people access, right? I would hope, though, and I plan it as the years progress, because we're going to have continual changes, I would say, over the next 2 or 3 years with this tool. Because we're early adopters, OSPI is working with school links to improve the tool to make it very specific for Washington State. So we're kind of having an initial access right now. But as things change and get more refined, I look forward to having opportunities where we engage with families, not necessarily just in a check out your students' high school and beyond plan way, but actual conversations, either at the building level or maybe some kind of listen and learn group where we engage and see like what more information might families want at Tumwater School District to be engaged in their students' high school and beyond plan. At this point, for this year, we're providing families access, but if a family member, doesn't log in or doesn't check their students' high school and beyond plan, it's okay. It's not going to be like you don't graduate if your parent doesn't check it.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a couple comments / questions, kind of speaking of legislative requirements. And so I have 2 kids. One's a sophomore. The other one just graduated last year. And I heard about the high school and beyond plan when my oldest son was, I think, just getting ready to go into middle school or early middle school. And I heard about it with, in my professional work, so I did hear about it from the legislative side, and I remember being very excited about the requirements that this happen and that there be a actual linkage between what students are indicating that they want to do. I was very fortunate. My son, even in elementary school, knew exactly what he wanted to do, so I thought, oh, this is great. It's going to be loaded into this system, and it's actually going to help with course planning going into high school. That didn't happen. There was always a huge disconnect with the high school and beyond plan and course planning. And so I see in the RCW a couple requirements around utilizing the Smarter Balance scores, for example, and requirements related to if students haven't earned a 3 or a 4 in their math classes in middle school, then they're required to align and take math in 9th and 10th grade. There's requirements laid out in here that all of this is supposed to be aligned to their graduation pathways as well. So heard a lot of information about the student responsibilities and tasks and everything, but I'm really curious to understand from the district's perspective, how have we been implementing these requirements with respect to having really tight alignment at the counselor level and utilizing this information, not only the high school and beyond plan, but the graduation pathways requirements to help with course planning throughout all of high school?
Yes, excellent question. In my assessment so far, much of the work that you're talking about for high school and beyond planning has been outside of the actual tool, whether it be Naviance or Homeroom or School Links. So in my meeting with the administrators at each building, that is not a secondary, but like in tandem conversation that we're having. We want to make sure that we have a tool that works for students to complete their activities, yes, but equally as important, how are we using that information to inform not only what classes students are taking at their current school, but potentially as they transition to high school and then, into plans thereafter. And I guess what I would say to that is it's the changes that we will likely need to make in order to see that those changes happen was going to be a multi-year process. Ultimately, School Links, when it is fully functioning in the way that OSPI intends, it will contain a lot of information about graduation pathway requirements. You should be able to log in and see, based on what my student has taken, are they on track to graduate? But it's going to take our upgrade to cumulative to be successful and some thoughtful and diligent work in us building those system processes into the tool. So right now, a lot of the requirements that you mentioned are happening in one-on-one conversations with students with their counselor, not necessarily in the tool that we're using. So we're still doing those things, but because they're not in the tool, they're not as easily accessible to families, not as clear, and I guess not easily reported on. But I would say that they're absolutely a part of the conversations that we're having with the administrators. And Danielle, who I mentioned at the middle school level, she'll also be involved in as we look at the 8th to high school transition and all of that.
So I think you answered my follow-up question, which is it doesn't sound like we have full functionality of School Links right now. So none of the course data, none of that has been loaded, graduation pathway information.
Correct. Okay. And we didn't plan on having it up and functioning this year. The reason is we are upgrading from Skyward to cumulative next year. And it is not feasible nor wise to connect a software like this to a student information system that's about to undergo a huge transition. So the priority is for the school district to have a successful upgrade to Q to ensure that our course data, our reporting, everything is really tightened up before we integrate it with a software like this. So I anticipate in year 3, this being the first year, next year being the Q rollover, and then the year after that, we'll likely see some additional features like course planner and any graduation pathway options that are become available through OSPI.
Yep. Kind of similar, when Darby started talking, it really helped me crystallize. I had written down originally when you were talking, how is this data going to be used? But I think what I really want to know is how are our systems going to change And how are we going to be using this data to change how the system works? 'Cause right now, I can imagine it's just based on what happened last year. And ideally, it is based on what students took last year, especially coming from middle school to high school. If the work that Elliott is doing, it works, the high school should be changing, but I don't see how that would happen without them learning how to use this tool. So what is the professional development, or what is the process that you'll be going through with administrators for them to make adaptations to how they do their work so they can use this?
I would say to that, where we're at right now is in the planning stages of that. So
Do they even know that they're going to have to change do they know that they should be changing how they do their work because of this tool? That they should be guided by what the students had been taken. Let's just talk about planning for ninth grade coursework. Planning the ninth grade master schedule or whatever. Like I said, if the stuff that Elliott is doing you're going to be coming in, there's going to be 90 students coming in with a higher level, of science than is likely anticipated or is likely planned for at Tumwater High School. Let's just bring a really simple, example. Do, Zach and his team, is there work going through about how they would use this Schooling's tool to use that to do their planning for the next year?
We have meetings set with them for next week and the week after to talk about this exact topic and the 8th to 9th grade transition.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes. Yep.
It's mostly a comment and then a request maybe. Thank you very much, Marcy. This was a great presentation. It sounds like you're in the planning stages, the early adoption stages for sure. Can we get more regular check-ins with how that?
I would love that.
Yeah, to see how it goes here for the first.
Yes.
Maybe later in the year, this year, and then whatever works out. I'll let Kevin help plan that as well too. But
I would love
it's
to.
Really helpful.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
I would love to hear from the students as well once you're actually in the tool and use it. Have either of you been delivered a lesson yet at your school? So as that happens, I'd be curious to hear from you what your experience is, not only in your homeroom classroom, but with the tool itself.
So did the work transfer over from high school and beyond planning?
Let me see if I answer your question this way. So usually when I get that question, students are asking one of two things. Did everything that I do before transfer over to the new tool? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so me being a junior now, am I going to have to redo my freshman and sophomore year?
No, you're not. So because we're launching fresh this year, everyone's kind of starting with a clean slate. Any senior or junior that had tasks left over from last year, count your blessings. They have evaporated into thin air, and you're now on fresh footing to start your high school and beyond planning with a tool that's going to serve you through the remainder of your high school experience. For students that did a lot of work in the old tool and are feeling maybe a sense of, did I lose any work? If there's anything in particular that you hope to retain, please contact me, and I have historical data from our old system that I can pull from if any student is interested. But by and large, students are going to experience a fresh onboarding experience. The first time you log in, you're going to be prompted to complete a Find Your Path assessment, and right from there, you're going to do your career research and complete some assessments. So you don't have to make up any old work starting this year. But moving forward, if students don't complete their tasks this year, the next year your tasks will follow you.
And then my second question is, what training did the teachers get? Was it from you, or was it from the admin that you gave the training to?
Yeah, our first staff-wide training was in late October, and all high school staff, certificated administrators, anyone who was interested was invited to a multi-building training by our School Links trainer. So we had a comprehensive training of the High School and Beyond Plan platform, what it means for a student to complete their scope and sequence as a requirement of their High School and Beyond plan, but also a broader look into what the tool is capable of, because the tasks that we're asking students to complete as a requirement of their High School and Beyond plan is touches a small portion of what this software can actually do. So we also poised it as an invitation to any teacher in the school district who's interested in using this software as a way to conduct career or college-related assignments in their room, or to have some kind of lesson or curriculum. I invite you to reach out to me, because this tool is available to everyone. And amazingly, School Links has even provided lessons. There's like, I think 12 and counting, with a full slate of others to be built out on everything from preparing for your first job to making a college list. To follow up on that, I'll say, as you go to the website, there's a staff resources section where those training recordings and slides have been posted. I also have developed drop-in High School and Beyond Plan office hours for myself that have been communicated to staff, as well as people have questions or problems. They can pop in Wednesday before or after school, and I can answer any questions on the spot.
All right, any last questions? Our panel. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great information.
Thanks.
All right. And our last report, Megan will present a first reading on policy 3432, emergencies.
Thank you. So this policy is connected to House Bill 1941, which was signed into law in 2022. It's because WASDA noticed that when schools and districts are doing drills, that there was a lot of variance in how the drills were being led, and also students and families were sometimes confused. There were different levels of preparedness, and sometimes schools were doing drills that were actually creating trauma and psychological stress for students. So they did a report and spelled out some very clear expectations about how drills should be run, how the drills should be communicated to students and processed after the drill, and then how the effectiveness of the drill is reported back to the safety director and the school district. So you'll see on the policy that we're putting forth, first reading has a significant amount of changes. And our hope is that this first reading will take place today, and then and then at the December 12th meeting that the recommendation I'll bring forth the recommendation to adopt the revisions.
Any questions? Let's first read. No? Oh, go ahead.
I'll just say one thing. I'm really happy to see this. The world has changed a lot. When I looked at it, our last read was, I think, 2013. So the world has changed a lot since then. So I'm really happy to see this. And I also, if this is adopted, would be really happy to see the procedures, something that we could look at too.
Yes. Thank you, Jill.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Looks like you are up again. All right, so here next we have a second reading on policy 2163, response to intervention.
Yes, so this was the policy I brought forth a few weeks ago at our October board meeting, asking for a first reading and then an adoption for this meeting. There was a recommendation for an edit that right in the middle of page 1, that it says the superintendent or designee will develop the procedures to implement student interventions. And in the original draft, the words, it just said the superintendent will develop. So we've made that edit, and we are working on the procedures.
Are there any questions? Any questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion for action.
So I move that we move this beyond.
Adopt.
I'm sorry?
Adopt.
Yes, okay, there we go. Thank you. I move that we adopt this as presented.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to adopt policy 2163, response to intervention. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, policy 2163 is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Ben Rarick, Assistant Superintendent, will present Resolution 052425, levy certification.
Good evening, board members. It's my pleasure to speak to Resolution 052425, which is in your packet. This is an annual process that all school districts go through. It is the process by which school districts certify to their respective counties the amount of taxation that should be collected in support of the public schools. The resolution becomes necessary for a couple reasons. First of all, each year the county informs each school district the amount of administrative refunds that occur on their taxation. So an administrative refund, an example that would be in a particular year, the school district certifies that they're going to collect a certain amount, and let's say that's $10 million. And in the process of collecting that $10 million, it is determined that certain homeowners have small exemptions, or a particular homeowner has contested the valuation of their property, or it could be any number of things. And so the school district, for those reasons, and not just Tumwater, but any school district, may not be able to collect on the full amount that was certified. And in that case, the county comes back and says, we'll give you another opportunity to collect on that money so that the district is made whole. So this is a process that all school districts go through prior to November 30th of each year. And in passing this resolution, the board does two things. One is it allows the district to certify that it would indeed like to collect on those administrative refunds, the amounts of which are indicated in your packet. And secondly, it certifies the district's levy to the amount that the voters have authorized rather than the amount that is budgeted. The reason for that is that in the rare instance where the legislature might modify the per pupil levy cap, this puts the district in a position to be able to collect whatever it is allowed to collect under the cap. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't actually make any difference, but on the occasion when the legislature decides to adjust the lid, either presently or in some cases even retroactively, it positions districts that are in that rollback status to be able to take advantage of that. Those are the two primary reasons for the resolution. I stand ready to field any questions that you have.
Any questions? Nope. Okay. We'll now entertain a motion for action.
I move that we adopt Resolution 052425, levy certification.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 052425. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, Resolution 052425 is approved. Thank you. We'll now move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So I wanted to start just by highlighting a few things that happened over the last couple weeks of October. One, if you had a chance out at the Fresh Farm, this started last year. They did a haunted barn, and I would say not super haunted. So they did it like between the hours of 1 and 4, so they weren't like frightening people, but they were taking kids like off through the woods. So there was a little bit of you had the option to do the haunted part. Inside, they were doing a variety of activities: face painting for kids, bobbing for donuts. I can't really explain that to you, but you'd have to be there to see what that's like. But they were getting donuts, and then also they have a garden. If you've been out there, so they picked a bunch of different items to do these bags on this picture that were, so this is like a salsa bag. So all the things you need to make salsa, the recipe's on there, and one of the students happens to be dressed up as a taco. So I thought, perfect sharing for tonight. This is a picture for Halloween. Our student learning team dressed up as superheroes, so they're super learning superheroes, and I think just a fitting picture of them going out and saving the world one day at a time. So that's our student learning team in action. And then the last just kind of quick update before the rest of my report, day 46 of no scheduled laid routes. So, and our ridership is up. Ridership up by 8.3%. So again, we're kind of seeing some positive things. We're additional students. When the bus shows up on time every day, they're likely to get actually on the bus, and they can rely on it to come the next day at the same time. I got a question from one of our parents saying, why is this bus parked at this specific place? Like, why don't they just get to my house earlier? Because the bus, and so they're running on time. And what may you not know, the buses do have pullover places where they park and they wait because they get to the stop within the minute that they're supposed to be there. So they have designated pullover times. Kids are not necessarily on the bus at that point. And they have a safe place to park and they're not blocking traffic, and then they go on their route. So we're seeing some very good success. And I know Ben talked about getting to November, and here we are to November, and I think even we have some additional drivers coming on board, so having a little bit of wiggle room around some substitutes and such as we move into flu season and such. So we're excited to see that. Monday is Veterans Day, and so I just want to take a moment to express the significance of this important day for not only for the Tumwater School District, but for our state and for our nation, and their relevance to our educational community. Veterans Day is a time to come together as a nation to honor and recognize the sacrifices and service of the men and women who have served in the armed forces, protecting our freedoms and way of life. Each school does a great job of doing an observation, and those are all happening this week. I can send that out to you if you'd like, where they're all happening. If you would like that, I'll look for some nods. You want to see those times? I think we have a schedule that I'll send out to them for Friday for Veterans Day assemblies, and you'll see all the schools. You can't go to all of them. You'll just get to pick some. So it is tomorrow. So can you help me get that out? Perfect. Thank you. There was a video created, and I think, Lori, you created this, or got you and Sarah, and with the help of, and you were sent this. Would you like to see it? It's about 5 minutes long today.
Yep.
You okay? Okay. Thank you for putting that together.
Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're also recognizing and thanking a few other people as we enter into the month of November. During the week of November 11th to the 15th, we celebrate National School Psychology Week, and this celebrates the contributions of school psychologists and the important role they play in our schools and our communities. This annual opportunity to recognize school psychologists who help work and help children thrive in school, at home, and in life. This year's theme is Spark Discovery, which recognizes the work that school psychologists do to help their communities seek out new ideas, effect change, and expand horizons for children and youth. Our school psychs in Tumwater are Danielle Bento, Christy Bramble, Richard Coate, Michelle Hodeman, Erica Adams, Chelsea Johnston, Sherry Bentley, and we also have 2 interns, Leah Brown and Haley Short, so thank you for them. And I know our student services team is also planning some special recognition for them next week. It is also, November is National American Heritage Month, a time to observe, celebrate, and honor the history, traditions, cultures, and contributions of the indigenous people of the USA, and certainly of here in Tumwater. We want to join us in celebrating the rich and diverse cultures of our Pacific Northwest. We also have American Education Week, and this really is an annual nationwide event in the United States that celebrates the importance of public education and the role it plays in shaping the future of individuals and the nation as a whole. It typically takes place the 3rd week of November. This year is on November 18th to the 24th. Did I have that right? And we celebrate public education, but this week also helps remind us to make education in America, and specifically Tumwater, even better. This year's theme is Together for Safe, Just, and Equitable Schools. And lastly, I want to just talk quickly about, last week I went to the Thurston County Television, through Thurston County Media, our community media, and it's the Superintendent's Roundtable, and we meet 3 times a year, and it's moderated by Deb Vinsel, the CEO of Thurston County Media. And so we have superintendents from the 4 largest districts in Thurston County: Olympia, North Thurston, Tumwater, and Yelm. So we share information about successes and challenges on a variety of education topics, ranging from school funding to educational programs. This month, we also talked about the start of the school year, legislative priorities, and happenings from across the region. I did include in my report the May video, so that was the last time we met as a roundtable. This year we have a couple new, so this is our old picture. We have now a new group and another new superintendent. In case of Deb, we have Troy Oliver in North Thurston. So if you'd like to watch that, I did put the link for November or May. The November one should be coming up here shortly. So I hope you can watch it. It's riveting. If I just say so myself.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. All right, where are we at? I'm a little thrown off because it's a business meeting on the first part of the month. So,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board member reports. We'll move on to our legislative update. Vice President Beard.
So we can kind of do a little work session just to bring you back. So at the last meeting, we shared our past legislative priorities for our school district. What you have here is a link to the WASDA legislative priorities for 2025. And then I asked, in the memo, I asked Kevin to identify maybe some other priorities that Tumwater might have. And part of the work here is to talk about, have a discussion about what Tumwater's priorities should be. But I gave you the WASDA legislative priorities as a framework. But as you see in the memo, Kevin provided some other information and maybe some other areas that we might consider a priority. Ben talked about the levy lid. There has been a time where the legislature lifted the levy lid. It was right after the McCleary decision, and they cut everyone's levy down to $1.50, and we were collecting at a much higher rate. And they changed it during session, so we were able to capitalize on that. So the first suggestion that Kevin gave in his memo is, looking at the levy lid and allowing us to collect the money that the voters have approved. looking, maybe a priority might also be around student behavior. And then the last few years, school lunches, fully funding school meals has been a priority. Does anyone have questions, comments, thoughts?
So it sounds like it's overarchingly still focused on the concept of funding.
Mm-hmm.
So even student behavior, like what would be the legislative action that we would be hoping to gain by having that be a priority area?
I think there's probably a couple different areas, and oftentimes we would like money to come to us a little bit untethered and allow us to make some choices. But even like additional para support, and I think we're seeing.
So staffing.
Yeah, it's a staffing, but they really don't. If you look at our apportionment, para funding in the state as a part of apportionment is almost nil. Almost all of our paras are funded through our local levy. And so I think funding in that area would be one that I think, again, dedicated to improving student behavior. The other would be additional apportionment, very much dedicated to student behavior. And so that could look like additional counseling, dean of students, those kinds of positions within like middle school, secondary schools. Yeah, so it does, I think, in end, the legislative session is a lot. It's always about money for districts. And I think we try to frame this in as positive way as possible, but I think that is, we need money and resources to help support folks. And I think oftentimes in the legislative, we'll end up coming with reports of things that we're going and testifying, oftentimes though to fight. Like, so there'll be some changes that we don't want, and we're testifying for those almost more than the things that we were wanting. So I think there's that mixture of both of, we'll need to say this isn't a good solution for what, or this isn't a problem that you're trying to fix. So there's some of those things that we'll know as this legislative session gets rolling. The levy lid is on there as a priority. Partly there is conversation of some pretty strong talk about this from King County to increase their levy lid again. So they are already collecting like $3.50 per thousand, and there's talk of allowing them to raise it even more. And so we want to put this, it will be a conversation of, fine, we're not going to fight we don't want to fight Seattle and King County, but we do want to be included in this. And so just the raising costs and these different things that they're seeing in that area, we are experiencing the same thing, and so we just want that message to be sent to them loud and clear.
And so the last document that's part of your materials is a presentation that staff put together about funding, and especially around the material supplies and operating costs. It's just to point out just how out of whack, we've been having to pay a lot more for material supplies and operating costs because it's outpaced inflation. And then that last slide talks about the insurance costs. We talked about that at the last meeting. It's something that came up during session last year as a big concern, and I just wanted you all to see what that insurance cost increase has been for Tumwater.
Yeah, I appreciate Ben and Kira and his team put this information together. Super helpful, I think, to really put where this is the impacts. And when we're talking about we're asking for additional money, this really is, if we say pupil transportation is an expectation to be funded by the state, I think this chart starts to show you, and while the graph goes kind of wild because of our basic education, you could kind of make this a little bit more dramatic if it was the dollar figures, but you can see a $1.3 million difference between state funding and what our actual costs are. And so I think that's really, we're not asking for anything other than, can we just cover the cost of our current transportation system? And the same thing we go, whether it be in food service or in special education, we just want to be made whole on the costs that we're already doing on things that we believe should be covered by state funding.
That right now our levy is covered.
The levy is
so
covering
we can't get more paras for our students.
Right, so we could, if they just cover these things, then we would have more option. We talk about behavioral or, behavior. This would free up money for us to make that decision around, if you give us the $1.5 million in transportation, it frees up money out of the levy then for us to be more responsive to student behavior. would be a good example.
Yeah, I think so. So you're looking at the three and then these in addition to the three.
I guess I was just asked to provide, from our perspective, some things that are important to the district at this point as we head into this legislative session, things that we're talking about as a cabinet group at the district level, and things that we're hearing from all of our schools that are.
Yeah, so again, it looks like all things lead to funding, which is fine, and I do think it's a good idea to have something tangible to tie it to, which you can see with the special education, MSOC, and what's the third one on the other?
Transportation.
Transportation. Local levy lid and school lunch eligibility. You can see something specific. Student behavior, it's a little more difficult, and so from like an advocacy perspective, that's just what I'm thinking about is what are we advocating for when by identifying that as something that would be on our priority list. The rest are good.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, so I think be good to be as specific as we can. That's one thing about these legislative guys, that they go, well.
People.
I'm sorry, people, persons, whatever. That, as I say, the more specific we can be, the more likely, when I question them, then they say they can respond, but they need specifics. They can't just have, yeah, let's get more money for student behavior activities. So we can come up with dollar estimates that would really help, percentages, or whatever. Yeah, same thing with materials.
Yeah, I think out of this and this conversation tonight, we would work on a district brochure to come back and share with you at our next meeting.
Do you guys have what you need to put something together?
I think so. I think we've heard probably on the student behavior and a few of the other things, and then obviously matching up with, again, WASDA, WASBO, WASA, all the W organization, all the WASs of the state are all aligned this year, and I think that again should be something helpful. I hope our legislators and leaders at the state level are hearing a very consistent message from every organization, and there is a lot of advocacy that will be happening. So,
what I like about the numbers is, WASDA has their priorities, but our legislators need to understand what that actually means. So if it were me, I would like to see numbers. $1.5 million for transportation that we could spend on something else to help students, like that. That is meaningful.
Our handout, we'll add some graphs in there for our handout that we'll bring back.
Thank you.
I saw Lori shaking her head.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. I just had a real quick note, board goals update, because this is a ongoing one. So we got an opportunity to continue to hear a little bit more in our student learning goal area. It'll be interesting to see how this work evolves. And coming up in a couple weeks, we'll all be attending the WASDA conference, so that falls nicely under our governance and kind of leadership work and professional development too. So that's a nice opportunity and an update there.
Can I ask a question? When are we going to have our data presentation? When does that happen?
We do, like on graduation data is some of the primary driver.
Yeah.
Is that we have, I believe that's scheduled for December.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thanks.
Okay. We are now ready for board comments. Keep in mind, each person has approximately 2 minutes to speak. If it all works for you, we can start at that end of the table, head down this way again.
Again, I have no comments for this meeting. Thank you.
A big concern I know is the Tumwater Middle School crosswalk. It is very dark, and with the construction going on across, it's going to be a very high traffic area. And kids aren't paying attention. It's not the kids' fault. They're on their cell phones walking, and kids are almost getting hit. At Tumwater Hill, there's flashing lights that happen. I think that should be over at Tumwater Middle School because it's a very big concern, especially with the new construction going in. It's going to be a very high traffic area, and people may not see the kids, especially in the dark.
Yeah, we are aware of that issue, and I'm working with our buildings and grounds and the middle school to see if there's some short-term, the lighting and doing some of that is going to be in cooperation with the city. There may be some grants for that to be able to do something, and we're kind of looking at what might be can we put a sign out? Again, we need city approval to put some of that stuff on the street, so we're working through that process, and in the meantime, they are aware of that issue.
Okay, thank
Especially
you.
as it's gotten, I think this week it just became more noticeable as soon as the time changed and it's darker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All I had, just reflecting on this meeting, what I heard Elliot say a lot during his school improvement plan that made me really excited was how much he's listening to students. And I do think that's how you combat apathy. And I've just really excited. It's something I've always believed in. I think that's where we will make a big difference, is if we are making decisions and creating processes that include students and student voice. So I just wanted to wanted to say that I that's what I heard Elliot saying, and I hope I hear more of that coming from other schools.
So I'm going to kind of ride on that too. I was very impressed with the details of the core content, the student improvement plan. I like that they're the multi-approach to that, because it seems like that we're going to address a lot of the problems. I too want to follow up on, I'd really like to see how the improvements, because that's what, as a board, what we're really looking for that. And then secondarily, I wanted to thank again our student reps. You're always so insightful, and it's so good to hear directly from you folks.
Let's see. On the meeting today, reflecting a little bit. Great job on the presentations. It was very helpful. Agree with some of the other comments as well. I want to thank and acknowledge our veterans in the district. That's very cool, and I learned something today about Miss Sylvia.
I know, exactly. That was very cool.
I am going to have to talk to her about that. I run into her every once in a while, so it's very cool to see that. I want to thank our public commenter. Is it Alethea? Is that Alethea? Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. I know I was listening very intently. Coincidentally, this topic came up earlier this week with a conversation I was having with someone, and we'll probably continue that conversation. I can't promise anything other than thanking you for giving your comment, and we'll talk about this. Very interesting. At first, I did not think it was a policy, and when you said that, I went, hey, wait a minute, and I know a lot of policies for sure, just ask anyone up here probably. I did not, I thought that was a building decision, but it is, it's a board policy, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. I was able to do some school visits here recently, and it was great to be in the schools for sure. The theme that came up, though, was around the behavior, so we touched and talked about that a little bit. I would have said something at the time, but everyone seemed to be in agreement on it. But I saw it firsthand as well, too. I saw it disrupt during a class, during one of the visits, and Liz and I spent a good 15, 20 minutes just dealing with the behavior. So it's real, and it's happening, and it's impacting our schools for sure. And then the last one I have here is, while I was out visiting schools, I ran into two people from the district office that were out doing their job. I know it sounds strange, but Ben was one of them. I ran into Peter G., and he was there doing some analysis, some fiscal analysis around supporting, I believe, what's Kevin's communication out around asking schools and departments to trim I'm going to guess 10%, and I could be wrong, but something around that effect to take a look at what we could do this year. I saw Ben actively doing that, and then I saw Bob Gibson doing the same exact thing later in the day, working to actively see what they can do to trim budget and costs. So thank you both for doing that. I appreciate it.
I just want to thank the presenters today. They did a really nice job, lots of good information. I wanted to thank the public comment too about the off-campus stuff. It's come up. I've been approached several times by parents throughout the district about that as well. So look forward to having some more discussion on that with the rest of the board. Again, just to reiterate, Veterans Day, very, very cool presentation to learn about all the different staff throughout the district, and I just thought that was really neat. So, yeah, that's all I have.
All right. Couple of comments here. I was able to continue my wonderfully fun tour around the district with a whole bunch of cool events. I was able to go see Alice in Wonderland at Tumwater High School, sat next to the Bogotans. It was just awesome. Loved it, and I look forward to seeing Clue at Black Hills coming up here soon. I was also able to make it out to the Tumwater Middle School Orchestra. I had no idea how large that group of kids is, and just incredible, really amazing. So that was super fun. Also, as superintendent, was able to get up to Joint Base Lewis McChord and see the I-Corps change of command ceremony, which is a really big deal. And it's one of those things where, you know, not a super like tight linkage to our school district, but, you know, we're considered community leaders, and, you know, we obviously have, as you could probably imagine with even looking at our veterans and staff, you know, we have lots of military families that attend Tumwater schools, and so just kind of some activities to try and strengthen that relationship a little bit, and just see if there's any way that we can maybe incorporate that environment more so. They're kind of far up there, and my comment is, yes, of course, thank you to our veterans, but I also have a deep-seated love for our military families, and especially our kids as well. It can be relatively silent when you are not located on the base, not living and going to school on the base, and so just any more visibility that we can have for our kids, you know, in military families is a good thing to pursue. And that is all for me. So with that, no further business coming before the board. I will I'll adjourn us at 8:06 p.m. Thank you all.